Hello everybody, welcome back for another video. Hope you're all doing well, and that you're all having an absolutely incredible day. To start things off, one of the most advanced Ethereum 2.0 clients, known as Lighthouse, has successfully tested running the network with 100,000 validators, according to Danny Ryan, the Ethereum 2.0 coordinator. He said, Lighthouse runs 100,000 validators like a breeze. Ryan said in a recent update on Ethereum's 2.0 development, he said initial tests with 100,000 validators saw clients using a consistent 8 gigabytes of RAM. But after a few days of optimization, Paul was able to reduce this to a steady 2.5 gigs, with some ideas to get it even lower. Lighthouse also made 70% gains in the hashing of state, which along with BLS signature verification is proving to be the most computational bottleneck in ETH2 clients. Lighthouse initially had a testnet with 16,000 validators. Prism launched one that had 30,000 validators. Now Lighthouse tests plans to handle 100,000 validators. They said the 100,000K, whatever, 100K testnet is not public yet. We'll announce when it's ready. Tying directly into this, for those of you who've been paying attention, or have seen that Ethereum's price continues to rise over the last 7 days, this seems to be potentially part of the reason why it has been doing so. It's the news and the next news that Ethereum 2.0 is coming along. But when you actually have the validators on the network, so you'll see as I get into the actual next thing. It's also very important. It says Ethereum's next system-wide upgrade, ETH 2.0, won't launch in Q2 2020 as expected, but researchers remain confident the initial network parameters will deploy in 2020. They said anything less would be considered a failure. In an Ask Me Anything on Reddit held on Wednesday, the ETH 2.0 team said the network won't launch until 3 clients can run testnets consistently for a minimum of 8 weeks. Ask Me Anything participants included Ethereum co-founder Vitalik Buterin and ETH 2.0 researchers Danny Ryan and Justin Drake. They said, Drake said, I have 95% confidence we will launch in 2020. You should have 100% confidence at this point. ETH 2.0, the next iteration of the world's leading smart contract blockchain, promises higher transaction throughput and a new security model under proof of stake. Often called Serenity, ETH 2.0 has been in the works since Ethereum's launch in 2015. This has been a very long time coming, and I mentioned before that I assumed, and I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, if Ethereum is meant to be the new world internet platform smart contract kind of thing, they have to get it correct. But like I said, I remember when they first started talking about the launch of Ethereum 2.0, and they said by the beginning of 2017, it would be there. We are well beyond the beginning of 2017, and we still do not have Ethereum 2.0, but has been slow to get off the ground due to the highly technical nature of the endeavor. The launch for Ethereum 2.0 was slated now. January 2020. I think they said the initial time frame was the 1st of January. And then I think they said the 3rd. Then they said January 2020 as the entire month. And then an undisclosed date in Q2 of 2020. Developers are now eyeing the network's 5th anniversary, which is the 30th of July 2020 for ETH 2.0's debut. I feel like this is probably the most logical. There's a lot of energy around the actual May, June, July fiasco thing that's expected to happen within the cryptocurrency space. So it could be that if they're trying to have 3 testnets running consistently for 2 months at a time, they probably don't want to launch around April, if not May. A lot of the Ethereum news could be completely swallowed up by any Bitcoin price movement. I think anything like that would it wouldn't be detrimental to Ethereum, but it's more like remember in 2018 when cryptocurrency companies, Ethereum, Ripple, Cardano, Stellar, everyone was releasing incredible news, and it all got swallowed up by the fact that the prices were going down. Now imagine a situation where Bitcoin's price maybe is skyrocketing around April or May. You don't really want to release news that your thing is also coming out. Everyone's going to go, oh, well, that's cool. Well, how do I buy Bitcoin? That's just kind of how I see it. I mean, it also seems it's once again that same exact thing that the people from Batch did, which is really weird. They decided to launch their Bitcoin futures on the same exact day that someone went to the moon. I think that was their initial launch date, and they like patted themselves on the back as if they had also gone to the moon. So I would assume this is probably the most logical, especially if they have tens of thousands, if not 100,000 validators trying to work on the network. I think everything is... I'm not a technical worker in Ethereum, but I assume that everything is probably going relatively smooth, especially with, once again, the 2 months that they're going to need. They said Phase 0 will certainly launch in 2020. Audits are out and testnets are getting stronger every week, Ryan said in the discussion thread. I don't see a reality in which Phase 0 doesn't launch in 2020. So, once again, this cumulatively could be the reason why Ethereum's price is going up. As far as I'm sure people aren't too thrilled at any delay, especially at the end of July, but it kind of is what it is. Like I said, we've come a very long way within the cryptocurrency space. Now, even looking back at it, 5 years has kind of really just zoomed by. So I assume another 3-4 months to actually get the beginnings of Ethereum 2.0 is totally fine. But yeah, that's the Ethereum upgrade, why maybe the price has been going up, because there hasn't been really anything else. I mean, that is a lot what I just spoke about. But I mean, anything else as far as like what Ethereum has or has not been doing, it's more like everyone's kind of just waiting for the next iteration of this thing to kind of launch. And I guess when they say 95% confidence for July 2020, I'm going to try not to hold my breath, because remember, we also went over this last year as well. But there's a lot of money riding on this. It's not simply just people who are holding Ether. It's the governments and the hundreds of companies who've also announced their support that they are going to build on top of Ethereum. So you have to kind of get things right. Can you imagine a situation where the people from Ethereum were like, no, let's do it now. February, bam, let's go Ethereum 2.0. And the network is slow. They don't have the 3,000 transactions per second. They have like maybe 150. There's a lot of like backlogs on the network. The smart contracts don't work. They have like 3 or 4 hacks. That would be incredibly detrimental. So we'll give them time. I mean, we don't really have a choice. We have to wait in sort of way. Anyway, that's the Ethereum news. And let us move on. Next up, during an exclusive interview with Cointelegraph, BitPay CEO Stephen Pear said that the platform would soon add support for more cryptocurrencies along with a possible Lightning Network integration, while Pear was unable to disclose which cryptos would be added to the platform next. He mentioned that there's focus on the top performing blockchains with the highest market cap, he said. I'm not specifically going to name which ones we will add, but you can look at CoinMarketCap to see all the top blockchains and come up with good guesses in what we are interested in. We are looking at cryptocurrencies that have adoption and work well for payments. We also might add some smaller ones that aren't as adopted but are doing something innovative around payments. I'm going to assume, before we even get to anything else, I'm going to assume we're going to hear a Lumens, an XRP, a Tether, a Pax, probably not Litecoin. If they don't already have Ether, maybe Ether, but even then, and some other coin that I can't possibly think. I don't think they would add Tezos for actual payments. BitPay, which has been operating since 2011, my goodness, has become a leading Bitcoin payment service provider. According to Pear, the company conducts over $1 billion a year in payment volume and has about 30,000 active merchant accounts. Major enterprises like AT&T and Microsoft also use BitPay to allow customers to make transactions using cryptocurrency. Oh, there we go. While BitPay is known for accepting Bitcoin, Bcash, and Ether for online and in-store payments, Pear has noticed that customers are requesting different cryptocurrencies to be used for transactions, noting, he said, we constantly get asked about XRP and a number of stablecoins. Our customers would prefer that we support all cryptocurrencies, but we have to make choices. In situations like this, first of all, BitPay is, 9 years is a very long time, and I'm sure they want to contain their foothold on whatever part of the industry that they are currently in. It's not likely. And you want to hear something? Never mind. I would nope. Not gonna even get into it because that's too ridiculous. The entire point is a lot of people continuously ask, and it could be a range of things. It could be from XRP, LTC, XLM, Tezos, whatever you kind of want to say. People always want their coin that they hold or that they like the most to be used as a payment method or to be as a payment something. The fact of the matter actually is a lot of these things, even if added, would probably still not be used. So this is why I think that companies like this are always like, well, maybe, possibly we'll use your coin one day, because if you look at it realistically, especially from the actual point of view, don't hurt the messenger. It goes as far as if XRP is supposed to be used for banks and other internal payments and remittances, it's highly unlikely that normal people would be paying AT&T or Microsoft in XRP as far as that go. The same exact thing as far as Ether. I assume we're going to get to a point in the near future, if ETH 2.0 does launch this year, where people aren't actually selling or using their Ether as a payment method. There's nothing in the way right now of Bitcoin continuously being used as an actual payment method, regardless of how slow it is, regardless of how long a confirmation might take for the transaction to actually go through. Ether is going to be locked up in the actual Ethereum network during proof of stake. XRP has a completely different use case. Litecoin is being Litecoin. They're not going to add Tezos, so we'll kind of see what they'll end up adding. But it's BitPay, and there's another company. They're very, very huge within the cryptocurrency space, but I can't remember what they're called. And the reason why they're doing so well right now, for those of you who don't know, the original idea, and it still holds true, that if I want to send you crypto, or if you want to send me crypto, we can do so. Bam, no intermediaries needed, no third party. But a lot of companies and countries are not comfortable with this because they don't know what's going on. So they employ other companies such as BitPay to be the middleman. So they can say, if BitPay messes up, then you are at fault. BitPay, it's your problem. They want to know where all these transactions are kind of going through. And this is why major companies are actually using them. As far as the Lightning Network integration, I assume that's also going to happen. I give it about 2 years. I think between 2 to 3 years, we're going to see unless something else comes up, unless there's some other iteration of quicker, faster payments that's supposed to be the thing. We keep hearing the Lightning Network integration or usage from major companies, major institutions. Banks have also mentioned it once or twice that they like the idea of the Lightning Network, so I assume behind the scenes they're probably running some nodes, testing it out as well, because we will get to a point, if Bitcoin's price does potentially one day hit 100,000, if not the mythical number of 1 million. Like I said, a lot of people have that start using by number. If Bitcoin hits $1 million per coin, you'd better believe people are going to start to want to buy everyday normal things with the 3 Bitcoin that they accumulated at some point. So I assume we're going to see a rapid Lightning Network integration. I'm still waiting for my theory to kind of come true, where I was talking about either the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ was going to also announce their support for it, as well as I believe it was the New York Stock Exchange who was talking about launching that thing where all the other companies could be able to use Bitcoin. And you cannot have a situation where an app launches and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, 1.5 million people are using your app to pay in Bitcoin. And then the next day is like payment rejected, payment not going through. We see Bitcoin's blockchain has 500,000 transactions that aren't going through. So something has to be used and something has to give. And this is why I assume they even mentioned the Lightning Network. But yeah, let us move on. Next up, in what should be completely unsurprising news, the Swiss Financial Market Supervisory Authority, or FINMA, passed an anti-money laundering provision on the 7th of February, citing additional risk. The threshold for unidentified crypto exchange transactions is lowered from 5,000 Swiss francs to 1,000 Swiss francs, which is approximately around 1,020 US dollars, depending on the minute. The provision comes following the enactment of the new Financial Services Act and Financial Institutions Act, which came into force on the 1st of January. FINMA introduced the revised ordinance in response to those acts and will hold a consultation of follow-up regulation until the 9th of April. One of the key changes from the new provision is the normalization, yep, that was right, of Swiss national regulations with the Financial Action Task Force, or FATF's directives from June 2019. The international body mandated a maximum transaction limit of $1,000 for unidentified crypto exchange operations. All financial providers involved in cryptocurrencies will have to here's the most important part. All financial providers involved in cryptocurrencies will have to collect data on anyone initiating transactions amounting to more than $1,000. The information must be regularly submitted to the authorities for review. I watched a news thing about finance on YouTube yesterday. I can't remember the name of the video. I'm sorry that I keep mentioning things that I've watched. If you looked at my recently watched things, it's 800 things per day. I click on things that speak to me, and therefore then I watch them. But I don't remember the exact channel that I was watching these things on. And they were saying that a number of countries have started lowering, typically before. I'm sure a lot of you, especially if you are older than the age of 20, you should remember this. Especially in the US, this is also a very big thing, where if you are trying to, the entire thing, if you transfer more than 10,000, then the IRS has to be alerted or someone has to be told. So you've all heard stories, there's been tons of movies as well where cartels or other major entities or whatever, they deposit 9,500 into an account every single day to be able to get under that number. A lot of other countries don't even have a 10,000 per day thing. It's usually around 2,000 to 5,000. And what we're seeing now is that a number of countries, I don't know where exactly the panic is coming from. Maybe because I don't run a country and I'm not trying to strangle and hold down as millions of people. But they're all lowering the amount of money that can be transferred or the amount of money that can actually be held by people at a given time. And I know that sounds weird, but it goes back to the exact same thing that we saw from India, where they had gotten rid of the largest paper bill that they had in an effort to kind of stop black money laundering and any other phrase that any other country kind of uses. And they said that in the thing I was watching, they said this is a very dangerous trend, because it's one thing to tell people, imagine a situation where you're trying to send a family member 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 and it was able to go through before. This is not normal to send someone that much money, but in the case that you're trying to do so, bam, it goes through. Now imagine a situation where the limit is around 2,000 and you're trying to send someone emergency money to pay for something in their house. They have something's terribly wrong that they need this money. You try to send them money. 2 days later, you get a message from your bank. Oh yeah, it didn't go through. Your family member's in trouble, and you have to explain why you're sending this money. Now imagine a situation where that number has been completely knocked down to 1,000. Now imagine 5 years from now where they knock it down to 500 or even 200. So if you're trying to buy a TV, if you're trying to buy a new iPad, if you're trying to buy a new phone, if you're trying to buy anything that's over this certain limit, and there are many things that we buy in this day's life that cost over 1,000. Computers cost over 1,000, cars cost over 1,000, phones cost over 1,000. You kind of get the entire gist of it. And they say that this is probably, it's the tightening of controls in a certain way that people won't complain about it. If you tell people from 1 second to the next that they can only do, 10,000, and then the next day they go, well, now you can only do 20, people would riot. But when you do 10,000 and then 8,000 and then 5,000 and then 1,000, people go, well, especially if it's for another industry that may not completely affect you, such as cryptocurrencies. Well, I don't really deal in cryptocurrencies. I mean, the thousand's fine. It eventually gets to you, go, well, it's just how things are. They need to know where all this money's going. And then it goes down to 500 and you go, okay, well, I mean, it's okay that they know what I buy, especially with everything becoming more digital. ATMs will start to disappear. It's just a matter of complete control. But the maximum of 1,000 is nuts, because what if let's say you invested $200 in cryptocurrencies. At the end of this year, that coin has 10x, and you decide to move that money. Why should the authorities have to know that you're moving that money? Why should they be alerted? Why would they have your information for exactly what you're doing? Where it's It's a lot. Yeah, I mean, yeah, right here. I should just scroll down a bit more. It said the initiative is part of a global trend pushing for stricter anti-money laundering regulation. By implementing the directive, FINMA is acknowledging the heightened money laundering risks in cryptocurrency transactions, according to its press release. Once again, and even more so, and this isn't a joke. This isn't me being cynical or snarky. I mean, what actually happens if you just transact 999 per day? And if you, okay, so and I'll tell you why. There was a movie I watched about 4 or 5 years ago. I forgot exactly what it was about. It was something about people busting into homes and with guns and finding money, and they found out that this group of people, they were actually depositing money from their illicit activities into a bank, and I think they were depositing, I think, about 7,000-8,000 per day to make sure that they were well under the 10,000. They had hired all these women to put this money into this same account over and over and over, but it never raised any red flags until about 3, 4, 5 years later, where this one account had millions and millions of dollars, because these like 10, 15 women were going to different banks every single day, and they were only putting 7, 8, 9,000. They would make sure that they were under the 10,000. And I think at some point the people ended up being busted because they were like, yeah, you have too much money in that account. And I was like, but if the law said 10,000 and they were putting 7,000, what was the actual law that they broke as far as that? So if the maximum transaction limit before you're identified is 1,000, what happens if you do 900? Now stay with me. What happens if you do 999 every day for an entire year because you just happen to have this money? Realistically, let's say someone's super rich and they have that money, 999 per day. At the end of the year, would they then get in trouble because they were $1 under and it seemed like they were trying to evade anti-money laundering laws? But if the law says 1,000 and you make sure that you went under it so that you were within the rights of the law, would you still get in trouble? And I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about, because we've seen situations like that before where like you're told not to do something, you don't do it, but it was so close to the fringe that you ended up still getting in trouble. Anyway, too much time talking about the whole FINMA thing, even though this is going to be a major part of your life, even though you don't really realize it. A lot of people tend to think or overlook news like this because they think it doesn't affect them. You are probably also in a situation, I don't know how long you've been in cryptocurrencies, you may have anywhere from $1 to 15 to 100,000 invested in cryptocurrencies as prices have gone up. It's going to get to a point where maybe in 5, 10 years, you're a multimillionaire. And then these laws directly affect you. Imagine trying to buy something and you have to constantly tell, yeah, I just bought a new hat. Yeah, I like, why, how much further can it go? And why is there such a huge strain now on this entire KYC anti-money laundering thing? As opposed to fixing the economy, why make sure that people can't move their money around and that they can't? I mean, it's one thing to have a restriction on like 50,000 or 100,000. Even then, it's still someone else's money. But 1,000? Because it's going to be 500 in about a year or two. I'm waiting for that news. Anyway, expect some of this to trickle down to your country as well, because the FATF, everything that they've said should happen since last year has now happened or is going to continue to happen. And a large part of this is the constraining the actual flow of money. China started this a couple of years ago where they pretty much told their citizens, I think it was, you couldn't transfer more than 100K out of the country, and now I think it's like 10,000 per year. Whew. Yeah. Let's move on. Next up, former CFTC chairman Chris Giancarlo. Chris Giancarlo sees the current set of financial systems, the older systems associated with the pre-digital age, as hopelessly obsolete, and he aims to fix them. There's a little video right there. He said, during my 5 years at the commission, we saw that this sort of new wave of the digitization of our worlds that's taking place. The first wave was the digitization of information, and that's created the internet as we know it today. But we're seeing what some people call the digitization of value, or that of the internet of value. Giancarlo recently called for the creation of the digital dollar and is working with the former Lab CFTC head Daniel Gorfine to experiment and ultimately ship a framework for a truly digital version of the currency. He said, I've also been thinking a lot about how so much of our physical infrastructure, our bridges, our tunnels, our airports, have been allowed to age and decay. They were state-of-the-art in the 50s and 60s. They are well past their sell-by date today. So much of our financial infrastructure has been allowed to age and decay and not been modernized. Yeah, if you want to have something to do this week and if you have nothing else to do, look up like global infrastructure collapse, or like how things are. There's so much of the stuff that was made like literally in the 50s, 60s, and like maybe early 70s that's not being fixed. It's being patched up. I'm sure a lot of you are shaking your head right now because you probably live in a country, state, city, province where you see this thing going. The potholes that aren't being fixed, and there's no real, the longer the decay goes on, the more expensive it becomes. And a lot of the people who are in offices right now, it's funny because they've been caught during conversations or like being recorded with other people, and they're like, yeah, we typically don't do anything because we wait for the next person to get into office. But then when the next person gets into office, they also don't really fix anything. And it's not even like a head office. It's like the people who are responsible for actually fixing the roads. Also really funny as well, I don't know if you care, I do. There was something a couple of months ago I watched where they were talking about how Europe developed during the 50s and 60s after the war, and they were trying to modernize as much as possible. And this is why when you go around certain European cities, you see like really pretty buildings and then really not pretty buildings. They were trying to keep up with America so bad, trying to make all this new infrastructure. Did you know that they were actually trying to build a highway? You've seen those highways that kind of like go above, like, so like if you're on like the ground level, like the loop highways that like go above your head sometimes as you're driving through things. They were going to build that on top of Amsterdam. I kid you not. I watched it and I saw the actual plans that they had made in the late 50s and early 60s. They planned on having tons and tons of highways going above Amsterdam because they thought that this would be the new wave of the future. It would be the easiest way for people to get around because the canals throughout Amsterdam and some of the streets are far too tiny. So they said, if we can get 1 million cars per year passing above this city, that'd be absolutely great. The problem was that no one thought of the actual prospect of blocking the entire city. The entire city would be completely dark because it would just be filled with layers and layers of highway. And then I think the only reason why it didn't go through is because I think the city didn't have enough money. And I think someone was like, why don't we fund bicycles instead? And that's how the whole, like, I'm not joking. It's very fascinating how the world works and how like certain things, how different the world could have been if people just didn't run out of money. The entire point being, going back to this situation, this is the 5th or 6th time this month. It is very early into the month that we keep hearing about the digitization of the dollar. We heard yesterday about the digitization of the Japanese yen, simply because they are afraid of other countries creating a digital currency before them. I'm assuming we're going to get news about this very soon, but I just don't have high hopes about this actually being a thing. I mean, not that I even want a digital dollar. I'll be entirely frank with you. I would love if countries and governments kind of embraced decentralized currencies, but come on. We know that's not even slightly in the cards until they're forced to do so. Anyway, we keep getting a lot of news about the digital dollar, about digital currencies from countries in general. And I assume we're only going to, I mean, we'll see by the end of next year if we hear about, I forgot I made green tea. We're going to hear about if any of it actually comes through. Sorry for the ADD. Is it ADD? ADHD? I have something. I'm never really all there. I look at stuff on the desk. I have peanuts. I have pieces of paper. I have a phone. So I'm always doing something different in my mind. There's the actual article, the original article that they were talking about once again. And let's move on now. To kind of finish things off, tying directly into the last story, the International Monetary Fund suggested that a digital currency underpinned by blockchain would boost the resources and capacity of the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, or the ECCU, a region that comprises St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, Anguilla, Antigua and Barbuda, Dominica, Grenada, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. On Friday, the International Monetary Fund published a concluding statement after it visited the ECCU region for a regular mission. The fund concluded that the Citizenship by Investment CBI program was one of the key reasons why the region had recorded a growth in the GDP, or gross domestic product, last year. For those of you, you know what the Citizenship by Investment is? And I only know what this is because, right. So the entire point of this is that a lot of countries around the world, typically, those who are not struggling economically, but would like a bit more money flowing through their veins, they pretty much have a thing where you can get citizenship by investment. You either have to, I mean, it ranges from different countries. A lot of countries, they will give you residency, like permanent residency, if not citizenship, if you buy property in their country, if you create a business in their country. It ranges dramatically depending on where you go. Some of them only, air quotes, only require like $500,000 for permanent residency. I think the UK, which is probably going to change relatively soon. I think you had to pay, I think, £1 million in order to get, I think, permanent residency within the country. Anyway, the point of that right there, the reason why this region grew is because a lot of people have been looking for not tax havens. It is a great privilege, not done by many, to hold multiple passports. And what's happening is that a lot of people around the world are figuring out that should there be economic, political strife, problems, issues in one country, that they can get onto a plane and go somewhere else because they have citizenship there, because they invested either $500,000, if not $1 million, into that country. So the growth of the region simply rising because people are trying to get citizenship there is interesting. But it's also worrying because what happens when all the rich people already have the passports that they want, and the reason why your country was growing is no longer something you can say, hey, this will continue forever. However, the International Monetary Fund anticipates the GDP growth to gradually slow to 2.5%. This coincides with a long-term historical average for the ECCU. Also, CBI inflows might also slow. Oh yeah, they will. In the short term, economic activity will be driven by tourism investment, some agricultural business prospects, and further post-hurricane reconstruction. 3 years ago, the Hurricane Irma and Maria hit the Dominican Republic. In light of somewhat moderate projections, the International Monetary Fund suggested the region to experiment with a common digital currency. The ECCU region is known, or it's under the supervision of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, the ECCB, which issues the Eastern Caribbean dollar. This is, I mean, I'm sorry to continue beating the dead horse or repeat the exact same phrases, but this is once again another news story about the IMF talking about that they're, I mean, even advising multiple countries, if not islands. I'm not sure exactly what to call them. Forgive me. I don't go to this region that often. They should all live under the exact same currency, but it's a digital currency that's underpinned by blockchain. This is why I always say, like, it would be, I don't know how to even start to finish that phrase. I find it always very telltale that governments and banks and institutions and IMFs are so excited about the prospect of blockchain technology, and that everyone should simply be using it as the brand new wave of things that they should be doing. Yeah, I mean, not much more to that story. I mean, there's a lot more to that story. It changes the entire way that money is used, especially for the citizens in that country. It changes the way that other countries deal with them. Does that then strengthen their economy because they live under one unified currency that can be easily transferred, traded, and used within their borders? But then also, you get to the same exact situation where things like this have happened before in the past. Other countries and regions have tried to merge their currencies, merge their passports. Someone messes up behind the scenes, someone prints too much money, things kind of go belly up, and a lot of these are crazy experiments because no one knows how they will turn out. No one knows or knew how the euro would turn out. No one knew at a certain point how the US dollar would have turned out. It's all these questions that kind of arise, and in a world where we see debt rising into trillions, one can only question the longevity of anything that is based on fiat. Because just because they're using a digital currency won't mean that it won't also have inflationary properties, which then 10 years down the line, do they then just create a new digital currency? Would it just be smarter for them to simply embrace the decentralized currencies that we have now, even if they started collecting or buying Bitcoin as a reserve against something that they were going to try and push out? That seems a lot more likely, or rather logical. However, what's likely is we may put this is, and it sounds crazy because I know that it relatively is, but as far as like the collapse of fiat currencies, I think we're a way off. I think we're going to have to coincide with them. Even if Bitcoin hits 1 million, there will probably still be situations where fiat will exist, but in simply like a different form. But eventually, the point being, nothing lasts forever. And I don't foresee a future where any country is going to want to be $100 trillion of debt to another country. So the Jenga pieces will fall. As always, a very special thank you to my Patreon supporters: Professor Wally from Gunbot University, Chongololo Tsongololo, Nostromo, I have to sneeze, Mr. Pickles, John Sarson, The Animal Reader, A Bibliophobia, Barebones Mining, Todd Mullis, Adam Graysick, Mohamaroni, Master Ventures in Thailand, Brady Niels, Jared Schneider, Wise Night Owl, 242 to the World, Crypto Joe, Bankroll Network, Adobo, Mia Louise, Crypto Artist, Coldy 3D, Nicholas Renault, One Piece, One Love, Damien Setsuna, Nick Kanai, Richie Rich III, Vlad the Impaler, Crypto Biz Shipment, Paxis, Nick Mangela, Vodi, Anthony Charles, Jim Gardner, Jeremy Fock, Minting Coins, Millie Hishest every day, and Kyle Skips Leg Day, Yes to Crypto, Body McBoat Face, Anytime Fitness, Monk's Corner Staff, Arthmetic 17, Big Me a Cake, and Tigra Machonista. Thank you very, very much for your support, and thank you to everyone who is a member of the channel. At the moment, we are still scratching the surface of a $10,000 Bitcoin. Bitcoin is currently at $9,809 US. Sometime throughout the night, this is not organic. Someone tried to push the price down by however much. I can't tell the exact percentage. I was asleep. Sorry if I sound exhausted today. I was singing. I was at a karaoke with friends for 6 hours, and it's now taking its toll. I think I got like 4 hours of sleep. A little exhausted. My eyes hurt. The entire point being, sometime throughout the night, this happened. It doesn't really make a lot of sense why it happened. I'm sure people once again felt like we were getting too close to 10,000. I think we hit 9,890 or something yesterday, which is too close for comfort for the bears. So I assume a lot of people were trying to push the price down. We're back up for wherever we were before. We are back up there. A lot of coins seem to, I want to say, benefit from that dip. Whenever there's a dip, other coins panic. But whenever prices in Bitcoin go back up, every other coin also, I mean, except for XRP at the moment, seem to be, and many other coins in the top 10 also aren't really benefiting as well. We'll see by the end of the weekend, if not the beginning of next week. That is the projected time frame I'm giving it for us to hit a $10,000 Bitcoin. I'm still expecting a hit to 10,000 and then a massive rush of fear. If we pull back to 9,200, don't be surprised. There's not much logic in the cryptocurrency market. I myself am tired of the unwarranted fear. I'm tired of the something has happened, therefore we have to react negatively because it's the only thing that everyone else is also expecting to do. I'm pretty sure we'd be perfectly fine if we went above 10,000 and started moving toward 12,000. Maybe had pullbacks during the weeks as we went up there, but as of right now, this is just what the market is looking like. And I guess as the rest of the world ends up waking up, we'll see if we gain any type of momentum. I'm exhausted. I need to sleep, and I already have more stuff to do. I have to work on the other one of the other businesses. I'm taking a break from the second one today. I have to work on the second channel and also go to dinner parties tonight. I hope you all enjoyed. Hope you all are having a great day, a great morning, a great afternoon, a great evening, wherever you are, wherever you might be. I do hope that it's absolutely fantastic. Thank you all once again for your support. Thank you all once again for watching and listening. Thank you all once again for dealing with me. Thank you all for everything, and I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See you.